so I don't have to like lean over
Yeah.
to eat. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, welcome
Awesome.
everybody to I guess the first round table session here for Ed's awareness. Nice to meet you all. I guess we could just start off first by just kind of briefly introducing ourselves. I guess I'll go first. My name is Richard On. Uh, I am the one here who is not going through what these fine ladies are going through here, but it's my mission to try and get the word out there and and try and promote more awareness for everyone out there. Uh, with that, ladies, the floor is yours. Cori, do you want to go first and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, y'all. My name is Cori. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I just turned 40. Woohoo! Um, the big 4-0. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, dysautonomia. I mean, really all the things. Mast cells, really bad for me. CCI. I do not have Chiari, but who knows? It might be just right down the pike. We never know. So I'm like, I have all the things. So yeah, I'm Cori. It's good to meet y'all.
Okay. Lakyn, how about you tell us about yourself? I'm just going in order by who showed up first, so don't be offended, Brooke.
Hi, I'm Lakyn. I live kind of DC adjacent, although anyone from DC would be very mad that I just chose that. But yeah, I have EDS, POTS, all the fun things, most recently with Chiari and then the neck instability. So yeah, it's been a fun journey, but I'm really glad to kind of meet other people who are in the same space.
Cool. Very cool. And Brooke, how about yourself?
I am Brooke Anderson. I live in Utah and I have EDS. I have AAI, which is instability of the skull on how it sits on your neck. I have CCI, which is your upper neck. And I have subaxial instability, which is your lower neck. And mine goes into my T spine, which is the upper back. I have Chiari, I have POTS, I have mast cell activation syndrome. That one's bad. um, I I don't know. What am I missing? I've got them all.
All of them.
All right, so cool. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you all, ladies. So I guess I mean you guys are very popular in regards with like your community, which seems like a tight knit community, I guess. And I mean, I see some relationships out there. Obviously, hopefully we're starting a new relationship right here between you three. And what do you think your goal is? Because I see you guys on social media a lot. What is your goal when you're reaching out to other people on social media? Brooke, let's start with you this time, I guess. I'm going reverse order.
I think my goal is twofold. One, to share um, the reality of these conditions and motherhood. I'm a mom of four. I had four boys in 5 years, and um, yeah, uh, my surgeon, his jaw dropped, and he said, "Your body shouldn't have been able to carry one." And I said, "Well, I literally almost died." So, I had PIC lines, and it turns out um, with mast cell activation syndrome, you can be allergic to hormones. I'm allergic to the pregnancy hormone. And I lost 50 pounds every time. I mean, preterm labor is related to EDS. Learned that after the fact. Went into labor at 20 weeks every time. Managed to stay pregnant. So I think back to the point was I do it to share awareness. The conditions are still considered very rare disorders. I mean, so to educate, because when I fell apart, as I say, and I went searching, there's only a couple social media platforms, and it was through someone's YouTube that actually like kind of got the ball rolling for me. So I want to be that for someone else. And then I also just really want to be authentic. Like, it's not easy being a mom of four. My oldest is only 9. My youngest just turned 4. He was 2 when I had my cervical fusion. Um, it's not easy being a mom with chronic health problems, especially with wild boys. So I think just being real and raw.
Okay. Okay. Lakyn, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think very similar to Brooke. I'm very, very new to the online community. And it's for the same reason that Brooke said, like when I've been finding out these diagnoses throughout my life, it's never been a doctor that has diagnosed me. It's me seeing people posting about things and then realizing, oh, maybe I'm not just clumsy. Oh, maybe you're not supposed to faint when you stand up every time. And there's not much to go off out there. And it's just what Brooke said. It was someone's YouTube for me where it kind of showed me, oh, maybe my head shouldn't feel like it's too heavy for my neck. And kind of seeing how they navigated that process, going to their doctors. Yeah, it's just like Brooke said, they're rare. But I know a lot of specialists out there don't believe they actually are rare. They're just so rarely diagnosed. And that's so unfortunate because that means thousands of people out there are living kind of in this conundrum that I was. So yeah, just hoping we can spread awareness throughout the community and outside of it.
Very good. Very good. Last but not least, Cori.
Okay, so yes, am I okay? I'm not muted. Okay, so I very much echo what y'all are saying. I'm a mom. I've got a little girl who's 5. But for me too, a big thing is when I was first diagnosed, it was dysautonomia. They hadn't even really connected at that point. You know, first comes EDS, then comes dysautonomia, then da, 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 da. It was just kind of like dysautonomia stood alone. And I started helping other women because it was a kind of unknown diagnosis back then. But for me, I saw so much fear and so much gaslighting happening to people. And I knew the gaslighting that had happened to me my whole life. And I didn't want other people to go through that when the answers are right before us, if doctors will pay attention and listen. And so I learned that the only way doctors are going to listen is if we scream as loud as we can. And the best way to scream as loud as you can is through social media.
Yeah.
And so here we are. Hello.
That's one thing that was amazing to me. Like when I first started researching this, is that like how many women were having such a tough time finding doctors specifically for these kinds of illnesses. I mean, growing up, like I never had to go through something like that, so I can't imagine what that must have been like for you guys. So that kind of goes into my next question here. Like, at what point did you guys start to realize? I mean, I said you guys, I mean you ladies, obviously, you gals. At what point did you ladies realize that something was up? Something was up medically with you guys?
Well, I
Sorry,
was going to
sorry,
say,
Cori. Yeah, Cori, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say quickly, I think it was Brooke that said something about after she delivered, she was losing a bunch of weight. After I delivered my daughter, I'm 5'8". Before I delivered her, I was 142 pounds, like muscle. After I walked out of the delivery room, I weighed 127 pounds right after delivering a baby. And all the ladies out there know that's very not normal. And my body was just in this whole huge flare the whole time I was pregnant, and it hit right after. And for me, I'd had little signs my whole life, but I was always told it was anxiety. And then I was told it was borderline personality disorder. I don't have, depression, something mental. And so then, of course, after I had my daughter, it was then I had postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or PTSD or something, but nobody wanted to look into the fact that it was physical. And so that's when I started researching, and I'm like, no, this is freaking physical. And I think as I started to research, and after I had my daughter, and like all these things just hit me like a ton of bricks, like the heat intolerance, the dizziness, the heart palpitations I never had, the tremors, the extreme weight loss. And I like, and also having no appetite, the pain, the hernias, I mean, just all these things that were happening. I'm like, okay, something is up here. And then you start uncovering, and it's like an epiphany. You're like, boom, boom. Holy smokes. So that, I mean, for me, my daughter ruined my health, but she saved my life all in one. So that for me, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying before Brooke came on. The EDS POTS stuff is like a pretty old diagnosis for me, and I can say how that went in a second, but Chiari, CCI, and AAI are all within this past year, and it was very much the same. I had my daughter 2 years ago, and I was miserable after it, and it was weird. It started at like 9 months after having her, and I'm like, okay, this must be postpartum, like this sucks, but it's gonna go away. And the longer we went, the worse it got. And it turned out I had a really bad spinal fluid leak from having her, which is super common with EDS, which led to the Chiari diagnosis and the neck instability diagnosis. So it's very much the same. Like, she's the best little thing that ever happened to me. And concurrently, she kind of ruined my health. But I think the spinal fluid leak is kind of what sparked finding these issues out now, where I'm in a place where surgery might help versus if I got too far down the road and there's not much left to do with it. But my POTS and EDS diagnosis, I actually feel like a bit of a pariah, but they were really easy. I passed out one time in high school and was diagnosed with POTS in like a hot second. EDS was pretty similar, but I am in a very, very great medical area. I have Johns Hopkins, Georgetown, George Washington, like all these really great medical facilities around me. So those diagnoses were a breeze, and I never have really experienced that medical gaslighting until the Chiari popped up, and that has just been mind blowing the things that doctors have said to me and told me. And it's been really, really frustrating. So I'm so sad that people have to deal with that in much bigger doses than I have.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I think I think that's crazy how well that, like, in response to your story, like, that makes me so happy for you that those early diagnoses came so easily. And then, like, that's just not fair to the rest of us.
Yeah.
But for me, my problem started young. And my doctors would just tell me, you're just not textbook. You're really making me research. Like, you're not textbook. You're not textbook. I started having dislocations at 9, 10, like full hip dislocations, knees, ankles, all, like, I just started dislocating everywhere. And people are just like, oh, you're so double jointed and you're so flexible. And granted, I was very flexible. I could do 1 foot over extended splits. For people that don't know what that is, my foot is a foot in the air, my butt is on the ground.
I'm pulling a hernia just thinking of that.
And I would sleep in the splits. Like, I'd just fall asleep in the splits. It was so comfy. So I had like the flexibility, crazy flexibility. I bruised super easy. I started passing out and having heart palpitations at 14, and I was sent to Primary Children's Hospital. It's the big hospital in Salt Lake here that works. It's a well-known hospital, and they like ran all these tests on my heart and ultrasounds. I did all these studies, and they're like, wow, you're like really healthy. I don't know why you're passing out. Like your heart monitor is going crazy. So my pot symptoms started when I was 14 and went really undiagnosed. And then uh, pregnancy was a surprise. I was told I absolutely couldn't get pregnant from endometriosis, which is a comorbid condition with EDS. Um, so surprise, I had a honeymoon baby. And we are married like 6 weeks, and I'm flat on the couch, puking my guts out, dropping out of school, and have lost nearly 50 pounds by 14 weeks pregnant. And I had a PICC line put in, I had home nurses, like the works. I was on bed rest with all my pregnancies and chronic pain, and after every pregnancy, something got worse. I mean, EDS is a connective tissue disorder. When you are pregnant, your body sends out hormones to like loosen your body. I mean, you've got to give birth. Those hormones made me just slowly never come back and continually get looser and looser. And then I popped out 3 kids in less than 3 years. Don't really recommend it, but you don't always have so much control over that. And I didn't. And so by the time I had my third, like, I was so malnourished. My stomach had just completely like ripped in two. I was just falling apart. And it took so long for me to like put myself back together. I was always a fitness fanatic, like crazy, and that's what saved my body. And the fact that I got fit so quickly in between children is what saved my body as much as it did. My fourth was an absolute surprise, and I didn't take that gracefully because I had worked really hard to get my body back healed after my third son. And it was his pregnancy that was kind of like sealed the deal. And I got the rest of my diagnoses after he was, well, they started not long after he was born, but came to a T right after his second birthday. And that's when I started digging for my diagnosis.
Interesting. So this is just an open-ended question here for anyone here who wants to answer it. I like what you said, Brooke, early on, how it wasn't textbook, what you were going through. Why do you think that is? Why do you think doctors don't quite know what this stuff is you guys are going through? Why does it take so much effort to find someone who knows what you're going through?
I guess, sorry, I don't want to be the one to always like jump in, but
Go for it.
you know, the thing is I think that, well, I interviewed a doctor, Dr. Howard Snapper, who is a dysautonomia specialist. He works with the Dysautonomia Society. He is my cardiologist out of Atlanta. And one thing that he said is that like dysautonomia, there's literally like a little paragraph about it in medical school. EDS, there's just like a little bit about EDS and connective tissue. So number one, I don't think that the medical community is fully being taught. I do believe that's going to change now because of post-COVID syndrome being dysautonomia. We were talking a little bit earlier. So that is a win for us in our community because there's also a lot of chicken before the egg. Like, are these people getting dysautonomia after COVID? Because we do know that viruses can trigger dysautonomia. So are they getting it because they have an underlying thing like EDS and all this stuff? So I think it's going to bring to light a lot of the issues that we've been having where they're realizing, and I know about you ladies probably feel me on this, like you'll see your friends and you're like, oh my gosh, like you've got all these health issues, they're undiagnosed. Can I try a biting criteria on you real quick? Are you hypermobile anywhere? Did anybody in your family have mitral valve prolapse? Can we talk for a sec? And you sit there and talk and you're like, okay, we need to get you to a doctor because I'm pretty freaking sure you've got a connective tissue disorder and it's probably EDS and all this other stuff and da-da-da-da-da. And they go and they start getting diagnosed. So if the medical community will partner with us, I believe that if we work together as a team, all this won't be so hard and not textbook. I think that they'll start to realize the textbook needs to be rewritten. The standard of care needs to be rewritten. That's a huge thing. We can talk about that one day, about the abuse that's happening. There's so much. So the textbook needs to go out the window and it needs to be rewritten. And that's what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now by sharing our stories. Thank you, Richard, for this. We're helping to rewrite the textbook so it's going to become textbook. There's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's really great that this community has kind of really clung to the zebra. I think that kind of explains why it's so hard to get diagnosed, because in medical school, you know, the saying is like, if you hear hoofbeats behind you, you don't turn around and expect to see a zebra. Like when people see, you know, X, Y, and Z going on wrong with you, it's like, this is what it should be. I'm not going to look outside the box. I don't have time to look outside the box. I don't know what could even be outside the box. And here we all come out just with this kind of, rare, weird problem going on that they weren't really looking for. So I'm really hoping what you said is true, that more and more doctors are going to be figuring this stuff out and it can be a little bit easier to get diagnosed. It would just help so many people that don't even know that something could be wrong with them yet.
Lakyn, you solved a riddle for me. I was always wondering why it was a zebra in terms of everything. Like who decided that? I was wondering where that came from. So that's so cool. It's interesting.
I think
is there anything you want to add to the conversation book?
Yeah. So on a side note, I'm being a zebra for Halloween. Yes, thank you. But yeah, so it's like they hear this, oh, it has to be a horse. I'm not going to turn and see. But the other thing I think is connective tissue affects your whole body. And so often you can have these symptoms and stuff, and they treat the symptoms. So your migraines, you know, they're caused by pressure, or like your stomach problems. So many of us have GI problems, you know, oh, it's IBS, or, you know, like they label it as something. And then you end up with all these labels and they don't get how they go together. And there's this awesome little poem that I can't say off the top of my head about it. So that basically, if you have all these conditions and these symptoms and they don't make sense, look at the connective tissue, because that is how it comes together.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Hey Richard, could I say one thing on top of that too? What Brooke just said. You know, the other thing is, and like she's saying, we get label upon label upon label upon label. And so when we go to doctors and we are now have a new thing that's rearing its ugly head, and we go in and we're like, and we haven't been diagnosed with EDS. We've been just all these comorbids, but they're not even diagnosing those correctly. And we go in and we're like, well, I've got this. And the doctor's like, Munchausen's, like major panic disorder, like psychiatric, like they literally, and so it's so hard, because if they would look, like Brooke was saying, like systemically at us and realize connective tissues, if you can't connect the disorders, think connective tissue. If you can't
connect the dots, look at the
connective tissue. And it's so true, because it's like, this is where the gaslighting comes in, and we live our whole lives going, well, this is just anxiety. Oh, well, my migraines are being caused by anxiety. My breathing issues are being caused by anxiety. My hip dislocating. Well, that's got to be anxiety. Like we gaslight ourselves at that point. Yeah. So these labels, it's hard. If they could correctly diagnose, then that's going to save us a lot of mental PTSD from actually being sick and going in and saying, you know, I have EDS. So then the doctors now know that means you got about 50 other comorbids going on. You know? So I thought that was really good what you said, Brooke, about the connecting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it actually brings me into my next question, because it seems like whatever gets diagnosed first, whether it be CCI, Chiari, POTS, whatever it is, I mean, I know none of you are doctors here, but why does it seem like it's a domino effect? Like once you get one, the others are shortly following. Why is that? Again, like another open-ended question here for anyone who might know that answer. Lakyn, you're muted, sorry.
Oh man, we are way too far into Zoom for that to have just happened. But I feel like for me, it was because of what we've been saying with social media and looking things up and being our own advocates. I was diagnosed with POTS first, and it was years after that that the EDS one came, but only because I met people and saw that, I have that, like I feel like that. So yeah, it's because I did my own research, and the same thing's happening now. Like I have had stomach issues my whole life, and it's IBS. And now that I've gotten more involved in this community, I see that so many people have gastroparesis. I have every single thing on the checklist. Like I'm sure I probably have that too. And so that's kind of like how this comes about. You know, you see things and you're like, that makes so much sense. Maybe I'm not just clumsy, you know? And it's just so nice when you're chronically ill to have a diagnosis. And I feel like that seems so weird, but when I go to the doctor, I want something to be wrong, because it means that I'm validated, that my pain's real, that there's maybe a plan forward. So yeah, it's really nice to have a name for what your body has been going through forever, and it just gives you some power to kind of move forward with what could be your next acronym to tag on to all of this.
We all want all the letters with our names. But going along with that, I think once you get one properly diagnosed, it's that your other conditions are then properly diagnosed. It's not that they weren't given a name, it's that they were misdiagnosed. And now they happen boom, 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 because then all your medical history is being put in the direct slots. And so for me, all my diagnoses actually came within 6 weeks of each other because I had to go digging for them when I ended up in the hospital in complete paralysis, not even always being able to talk. And the neurologist, the neurosurgeon came in and said, we are the flagship neurologists in this state, and you are having your postpartum manifest so physically that you are now in paralysis and can't talk, and we want to put you in inpatient. And my husband and I literally laughed at him, and my husband said, we could have put your diagnosis in an envelope and handed it to you. Give me an AMA, because we're going to go get the proper help. And he walked out so deflated. Never seen a doctor look so deflated as then. And I am blunt with doctors, always have been, because I've been told my whole life, oh no, like this isn't what it is. Like, oh, you have heartburn. No, I didn't come to the ER with heartburn. Sorry, doc. Try again. So while I was in there, I specifically told them, I was like, you know what, my sister just had surgery for Chiari. So we've discovered this family history of it. She went into half paralysis with her Chiari. It looked like a stroke. They looked for tumors and all these things, but missed the brain. Like they were looking for tumors in the brain and missed that the brain was slipping, you know? And he literally said, oh, it doesn't matter what she had. It doesn't apply to you. Like, mind blown. So I'm laying in the hospital bed, and my mom and I just start researching. And I tell my husband, I said, I have CCI. There's no way I don't have CCI. And he reads it. He's like, you totally have CCI. So we knew where to start. So I looked up CCI, a vlog popped up. She spoke about her doctor, Dr. Henderson, he's a well-known surgeon for CCI, and how she was put in this brace after visiting with him and kind of like why it works. And I overnighted one to me. And I got in it and I said, I'm going to learn to walk. I was still in paralysis. The only thing I could do was move my arms. I couldn't feel my body. I was army crawling to the toilet, like, and determined to find answers. So within a couple days, I was learning to walk on forearm crutches, and I was researching and watching like medical videos of the specialists teaching doctors. I'm sitting there watching them and taking notes, like pages and pages of notes. I watched solid 50 hours of this and found my own doctors, found the specialists, contacted their offices. What imaging do you need? What paperwork do I need to fill out for a consultation for you to preview my scans? Like, and that's how this is. You've got to go chase it.
Okay. All right. Great. Anything else you guys want to add?
I would just like to say too, I think that another thing, like Brooke was saying, it's almost like Pandora's box. You know, you open that box and all the butterflies start flying out, and they're like, "Oh, these are butterflies." In our case, they're zebras crawling out of that box. And you know, I think one thing that's a huge gift for us is, you know, my mom died from complications from this, undiagnosed, and now we're slowly crawling towards these diagnoses where I think they're going to come faster for our children, because the chances are we've got a 50-50 chance that every single child we ever have is going to have this. My daughter's been pre-diagnosed with it. And the good thing is doctors, the more we continue to speak our truth, speak our story, they're going to realize more and more. So the diagnosis will also come faster and faster because we are educating by being heard and screaming out to the medical community. So I think it's only going to get better. That's the good news, in my opinion. It's going to get better.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So I guess we're running close to, not quite an hour, but I figured we close it for tonight on one final question. And that is, what is your all's biggest aid in going through all this? What has been the one thing that you learned when you were going through all this stuff and then it really helped you throughout that process? Again, whoever wants to start, have at it.
Okay, I'll talk. I'll talk. So this might make me emotional. I'm going to try not to cry, but I'm hormonal. I'm perimenopausal, so y'all just leave me alone. I'm 40. The thing for me that's helped me get through this, before illness, BI, I was, you know, a very pursuant musician. I was on the road. Life was all about me, 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 me. When I got sick, it forced me to slow down quick. And I started to look at life a lot differently. So a lot of times thinking about like, what's the biggest aid for us? Like, was it, you know, my neck brace or this or that? Honestly, none of that. The biggest thing for me is having a gratitude mindset every single day, where I wake up and I literally say, okay, I'm having a bad day today. I'm hurting like Hades today, but I am here and I get to look at my daughter and I get to use my story to help others so they don't hurt or they don't feel alone. I get to use my story to help educate the community and doctors. You know, every sip of water now, I'm thankful for. It's just a sip of water, but I'm watching people in our community that are struggling to even take a sip of water. I didn't understand that before. And so the immense amount of gratitude I have over every little thing, even my kid calling and crying for me right now, I'm so thankful for. And gratitude, I'm not saying that you can't wake up and say, today is a crap day. I'm mad. I still grieve this. I still grieve my old life. But I pull myself out of that grief. I pull myself out of the pain by saying, However, I'm so thankful that I'm here, and I'm so thankful for my new friends I make, and just everything. Life is more beautiful with gratitude, and that's a game changer for me.
I want you to know how powerful that is, because I feel like I've had, chronic illness for years, and for most of my life it has been annoying and frustrating. But the past year has been debilitating. I mean, I have mobility aids now. I live in a neck brace, and I'm looking down the line at surgery soon, where I might not be able to move my head. I might, starting surgery, I might end up with most of my spine fused at some point. And that's really, really hard to like look at that as my future, when I was the same as you, like go-getter, so motivated, never stopped. And now I'm like, wow, I picked this up off the floor and I need to lay down for a couple hours because that was it for me. So it's really powerful that you brought that up and that you said that. And yeah, I want you to know that that's a really great lesson, and I definitely took that to heart. And for me, kind of the biggest thing I've learned throughout this process that's helped is, I hear people all the time say, like, if you could do it again without this, would you? And all of them say they wouldn't. And I would probably agree too, because I feel like it's changed my outlook on how I look at others. For most of my life, I wasn't in a neck brace, and you couldn't tell that anything was wrong with me. So I feel like the power of knowing that anybody could be suffering with anything really changes how you empathize with people, how you speak to people, your tolerance. And I think that's just so important to kind of have that sympathetic mindset. And that's something I wouldn't have had without having this experience.
Mm-hmm. For me, the first thing I thought was community. So like, I've just hit my 2 years living in my neck brace, and I just said, I feel like I should throw a party. Like, this is a big deal. And it's not like a negative big deal. Like, this 2 years really symbolizes a lot for me. I had, before I had my cervical fusion, I couldn't walk without forearm crutches. I couldn't always talk. I couldn't always think. Couldn't always get off the couch because I just pass out. I pass out laying down already. I'm laying down and I pass out. Like, that fusion changed my life. And yeah, I'm gonna need a fusion extension, but I wouldn't change how things have played out. I've gained so much. I'm not going to say I've gained more than I've lost, because I don't know that I could say that, but I appreciate what I've gained. So I appreciate the most sincere, non-judgmental friends, the community that's so willing to outreach and help, the community that's willing to just sit there on a phone call with you and you both just lay there, unable to really say much, but just knowing you get it. And we're just gonna lay on this Zoom and hardly talk and just be present with each other, essentially just hold space for each other. I am, I'm 16 months post-op of my fusion. And I've still spent the majority of my post-op time in my neck brace, knowing that I had damage below. And we were trying to do a shorter fusion in hopes to put off a longer fusion, just maybe till my kids were older and things, but it just doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And so I have very limited neck movement, and I will be without any movement from about here up. After my next surgery, I will, be like this. So occasionally I enjoy slouching while I can, even though it's not good for me. I was just going to say, I can show you my neck movement and such. since I'm fused from skull to C2, which is a common anchor place. They found shorter fusions are more successful if anchored at C2. Um, so I can look without moving my junction. I can look that far down, that far up, and that. And that feels like a ton. Like, honestly, like going like this, it's actually very hard for me to hold still and do that because I've turned my entire body for 2 years. Naturally, I go like this now. It's just natural to me. When I look down from here. And when I look up from there. And I can't show you very well sitting on a bed, but um so it's people are like, oh my gosh, it has to be so hard not to move your body. And I look at people and I'm like, I almost feel like you're weird for having neck movement. Like it's so distant to me now. I look at photos at me from when I was younger and I'm like, oh wow, like you're cute and all, being able to, like do this whole thing. But um it's weird. It's like looking at yourself before you had glasses and being like, you look kind of weird. That's how I feel about looking at myself with neck movement. I look at others and I'm like, it's painful watching you turn your head.
Oh, very cool. So I think we're gonna stop there for tonight, ladies. I just want to let you know this has been a really cool experience for me, just getting to hear all your stories and learn more about your community. And thank you for letting me be a part of it for a few minutes tonight. So thank you. I really hope we get to do this again. Uh, Looking for session number 2. I know, Brooke, you joined us a little late, but our hope was for session number 2 to be a little more about neck braces, which is something that you guys mentioned a lot tonight. So get those neck braces looking nice and shiny for next time, and we'll go from there. Sound good? Any other closing thoughts that you guys want to say before we head out?
When we're not recording, I do want to say something,
Okay,
but no,
gotcha.
I'm good.
All right, sounds good. All right, so I'll stop right now, and we'll see everyone next time.
Awesome.
Let me see.